Hi, everybody. So the next aspect of today's event is a transposition of something that we've been doing in Cannes for the last 5 or 6 years. Normally, this would be a small, intimate chat around a table at the House of PR in Cannes, where we would gather a handful of CEOs from around the industry. I would bitch and moan about how poor the performance of the PR sector had been in the Lions, and the fact that we had not been credited as the idea generation agency in any of the big winning campaigns. And they would try to explain to me why I was a blinkered fool who didn't understand what's really going on in the business. It's tremendously entertaining and also pretty harmless, because I then get to transcribe it in a way that makes me look smarter than I really am. Today, what you're getting is the raw and unvarnished version of that. So you can make up your own mind at the end of the conversation whether my concerns about the PR industry are overblown. And I'll try not to tread on well-worn turf in that regard and open up the conversation a little beyond that. To help me explore those issues, we have brought together 6 industry leaders from around the world. We are fairly sort of loosely committed to the idea of CEOs, so not everybody on the panel is a CEO, but everybody on the panel is an expert in their field and has an interesting and distinctive point of view. And I think I'm going to start by just asking everybody on the screen here to introduce themselves and give us a sort of 30-second explanation of why they're here, why this is an interesting topic, and what their role in the world is. And I don't know if you're seeing the same screen that I am, but Melissa, you're in the sort of top left celebrity square. So why don't you start and introduce yourself?
First of all, thank you, Paul, for that introduction and that sort of negativity frame up for our conversation. But you're right, we'll try to change your perception there. The PR is quite fine, thank you. I'm Melissa Wagner-Zork, and I'm Global CEO of We Communications, obviously still fiercely independent organization, still people at our center, and still hopefully a work in progress. Did you want to know something else? I think you said why this is so important, and I think in one word, it's that we're seeing communications actually playing a role in changing lives. Over to you, Heather.
I guess, am I the next celebrity square, Paul? In your view? Yeah. All right. Hi, everyone. Heather Kernahan. As of July 1st, I will be the global CEO of Hotwire. And for the moment, I am the CEO of North America for Hotwire. And we are a global technology communications consultancy. I'm so happy to join this on the back of winning Hotwire's first Lions. So we won 2 silver Lions this year, the first time for the business. And I'm excited to talk about the very distinct difference between Cannes winning work and other award-winning work, because it's clear to me now that we've moved into this territory that there is a big difference. And it is clear that it has to, we're moving societal issues forward out of our industry now. And I think we're going to see a fast acceleration of PR and Cannes line wins.
I guess I'm the next celebrity square. Thanks, Heather. And thank you, Paul, for the introduction and for putting on this event under difficult circumstances. I think it's been outstanding so far. So huge kudos to you and the rest of the team. I'm Sammy McCabe, founder and CEO of Clarity. We are a young independent agency, just shy of 100 people globally across 6 locations in the UK, Europe, and the US. I'm based in San Francisco, but currently in London, just out of quarantine. and in our office for the first time since being set out into the wild. So really excited to dive in today. I probably represent, the smaller independent agency perspective on this call, and generally feel a huge amount of optimism about our industry, and excited to share my perspective on that.
I'm going to treat this as a clock rather than as a left to right. So Alina, you're up.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Alina Diaz. I'm the Managing Director of running the consumer practice at MSL. My background is much more on cultural strategy and cultural marketing. So I'm very excited about this conversation and speaking about the role that PR has taken leading that conversations in culture and putting our brands in culture. Different than what, I would say traditional advertising would do. Also, very interested to share my perspective, having come from the advertising agency world myself, and moving into PR in the last couple of years. So excited to be here.
Mike.
Paul, thank you for having me, and it really is terrific to be part of this incredible group. Although I fear that if I'm looking at the screen and the Hollywood Squares reference, I'm like the Paul Lind of the experience, and so I'll try to do my best to own that. I'm the global CEO for Ketchum, and I think what I'm excited about is a colleague of mine actually did some math, and in the according to her, about 60 of the 67 winners that have been announced, we probably don't have the overnight tally included in that. 60 of those are, you could argue, are purpose-driven campaigns. And, I think one could argue that, of course, they are, given the year that we've all experienced and the important nature of doing work that matters, which is a big part of our purpose statement at Ketchum. I'd love to dig into that. Where will the future, as Heather said, where will the future of creative be? How can we define it? How can we help shape it? Particularly given that I would argue our entire business, all of us, is anchored in purpose, is anchored in advancing the reputations of organizations and seeing the connection between reputation and business results. So I'm liking that. I love what I'm seeing coming out of Con as it relates to that. And Paul, thanks for pulling us together. Judy, over to you.
Thank you. I'm Judy John. Thank you. I'm Judy John. I'm the Global Chief Creative Officer at Edelman. I joined 2 years ago because Richard said he thought the future of PR was creativity. He deeply, deeply believed in creativity as taking us to that next level. And I came from the ad agency side as well. This is my 6th time judging Cannes. I was just on the Titanium jury and we wrapped up yesterday. And it's really interesting being on the PR side of the business now and how creativity is evaluated, measured. I'm really interested in this conversation. I think it's going to be really lively. I just did a presentation with my strategy partner for a client, and they said, show us the best of PR. And our headline was, it's not the best of PR, the best is PR. And we proceeded to show some cases. So, it's going to be a great chat.
All right, so I'm going to start somewhat uncharacteristically with some good news. We just released the findings of our creativity in PR study. We asked a lot of people, clients and agency people around the world, about trends in PR. And one of the things that we heard back, and the sort of headline finding of that study, was that 60% of PR firms say they've been designated as lead creative agency by clients. That's a much higher number than we've seen before. And I wondered if you could tell me, first of all, whether that fits with your experience. Second of all, what you think that means and why you think that, if it is an accurate reflection of what's going on in the world, why that's happening now.
I think you want us to keep going. It's a clock, so I'll start. I'm not sure about...
But go ahead, Melissa.
Oh, no, go ahead, please. Who would you like to start?
No, after you, Melissa.
So I think that it might be 60%, it might be 50%. I think what's more important is that from our perspective as an agency, we've always had a seat at the creative table in an integrated way. And so I think we see different agencies move back and forth into that lead position, because I think even the phrase lead position is a bit misleading in terms of who is really responsible for what piece. So we found that, and especially with COVID smashing hierarchies, so we think about what's been happening in the last year and a half, anyone at the table can have a chance to raise that amazing idea, and then the creativity can follow in terms of how to bring it to life. So I think the biggest change we're seeing, Paul, is that yes, we have had more creative opportunities to stand on kind of, that's our idea, let's take it forward. But we're still not just planting the flag and saying, and that's ours. We're still seeing it being very integrated and everybody at the same table.
I'm going to interrupt the flow for a second and jump into the bottom right corner, if that's okay.
Sure.
In my experience, I would say COVID has accelerated where we need it to be. It's just accelerated in so many different aspects of life, the work from home, digitalization of everything that we do and our industry. Everything has been accelerated where they need it to be. We are seeing more and more clients come to us and say, we want to hear your ideas in addition to the advertising agency idea, the experiential agency ideas. And we're having clients almost challenge each other on who comes up with the best idea, and the best idea wins. It doesn't matter which agency is actually coming up with the idea. So in my viewpoint, we're seeing clients adapt more to that idea that the PR agency can be the creative agency more than the advertising agencies themselves. I think that they're a little bit behind, where clients are seeing we need consumer connection, and they are seeing the power of PR to do that. They don't care where it comes from. Now, the advertising agency is feeling a little bit of the threat of, we're here and we're showing up with fantastic creative. So I think that we're now seeing the pivot of the tension between what the client wants and how we've operated in the past. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that clients are more open than ever to where ideas come from. And that's great for everybody at the table. And at your typical IAT, it is about the best idea wins. And we are definitely at the table, and at the table more often with different assignments as well. So I think I agree that the COVID has really moved that forward.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's a reputation issue. You know, I really do believe our industry's reputation is evolving. And whereas in the past, we probably wouldn't have even been considered to present an idea. They wouldn't have asked us to do that. Oh, it's the PR agency. But because the reputation has changed, now we're considered an equal player and can be put up head to head with any of the other businesses. And I love that, because it does mean an evolution for us, Paul, even though I know we're not all the way there yet, and you might feel upset until we do, but we feel it every day.
Yeah, we feel that too. Sorry, Mike. I think a lot of that, from our perspective, has been driven by us really putting data and analytics at the heart of everything we do. And for us, that has changed the conversation. 24 months ago, I think we were perceived as a kind of tactical media relations execution partner that would be brought in to amplify the big idea that was brought to the table by somebody else. Now that we've really integrated data and analytics into absolutely everything, it's given us that seat at the table from the get-go. And we're much more of a strategic partner than we ever were. And I think that's, in microcosm, something that we've seen across the PR industry over the last several years. And this is finally coming to fruition in that way.
Mike, I'm interested in the Ketchum perspective, because you know, you guys are within the PR industry. pretty much an awards machine. I mean, over the 30-odd years that I've been covering the PR business, Ketchum has been consistently sort of top tier in terms of winning PR awards within the PR industry. I think it's fair to say that as lead agency, you guys haven't cracked Cannes yet. What's going on there? Is there a story behind that, do you think?
Well, I'll take both your compliment and then what felt like slightly a slap on the tail end of that comment. So thank you for that. This is what I would say, and actually, it's a build. I'll answer it as a build to Sammy's point. I think we're at a really interesting moment of opportunity or peril, depending on how we all embrace this. I'm reminded of a conversation I had about 2 weeks ago with one of our largest clients, and we were talking about the fact that she, and by extension her team, have been sort of sitting at the table in a very different way these past 18 months. That all credit to what they've done in the past, the board and her fellow executives looked to her 18 months ago in a very different way. And that seat at the table got bigger, it got more influential, it got more important. And so this is the moment, based on the kind of analytics that we now have, that we've developed on our own, that we have the ability to access. It is our moment to seize, whether that output or outcome becomes lead creative, lead agency, whatever you want to call it. This is a moment for our discipline to actually make sure we don't lose that ground that we've built over the past 18 months, because you needed the CCO, you needed communications, you needed PR at that table in a more meaningful way. So I think if we don't, then it's honestly at our peril. You know, we've been looked to for the past 18 months, both all of us as agencies and then the clients for whom we're serving. This is a moment where we've got to grab this with the swagger that we have earned, certainly over time, but definitively over the past 18 months. And, you know, I guess in terms of have we cracked the code, I'd like to think that we've cracked the code on what it is to be about the lead idea, less necessarily the lead creative. That, you know, I think if you look at a lot of the work that's winning, some of the beautiful, beautiful work that we've been celebrated for with 11 so far this year, but some of the beautiful work that other agencies have been a part of, you know, I'm not dismissing that 60% lead creative finding that you guys put in your, that you reported this week in Arun's great piece. But I'm challenging, I think, myself and our agency to be as much about the lead idea as it is the lead creative in the pole position.
Heather, I'm interested in your perspective. I mean, you and Melissa both come from a technology heritage. And that's interesting to me because a lot of that work is B2B oriented. And in the B2B arena, public relations has often been the lead discipline. Do you see any shift in that? Do you think there's anything that your brethren in the consumer sector can learn from that experience?
Well, the past few years have seen the expansion of technology into every industry, which of course we like to see, being specialists in tech. So I don't see it refined anymore or confined anymore to the B2B industry exclusively. And being able to tell the innovation story is an important skill to have as you move into consumer or manufacturing or luxury or hospitality, whatever the industry could be. So I think that ethos of innovation has spread everywhere. When I look at the B2B client base and the idea of creativity, I feel like it's slowly come in, and there are some dominant leaders in the tech space who are embracing the idea of creativity and big ideas, but we're still fairly early, I would say, in the B2B industry overall. I think we've got a lot of room to ask our customers to do more, to push themselves a little harder, to actually take inspiration from consumer and cultural ideas that have gone out into the marketplace and feel brave to do that. They feel brave in different ways in the tech industry. They haven't felt brave, I think, universally to really embrace creativity and what it can do for them.
Let me. I'm sure those of you who've dealt with me before already know this, but the core of my concern is this, There's no question in my mind that Cannes today is absolutely dominated by public relations ideas and public relations campaigns. And I'd sort of trace that back to me. The critical inflection point was probably Unilever and the Dove campaign for Real Beauty and everything that came out of that. So that campaign transformed Unilever. All of its brands suddenly looked for their own real beauty, their own issue that they could build positioning around. And then it transformed the entire marketing world. And if you look at the campaigns that have killed it at Cannes in recent years, whether it's Fearless Girl, whether it's Like a Girl, those big kind of, memorable, those are all public relations ideas. If you look at the list of gold winners from this year's awards, they're all clearly public relations ideas. And not only that, but public relations ideas are winning in multiple categories. And I should be delighted by that, and to a certain extent I am. What concerns me is that so many of those public relations ideas are not coming from PR agencies, they're coming from ad agencies. And what concerns me even more is that if clients look down the list of gold winners at this year's Cannes and in the PR category, and they see FCB, McCann, DDB, Publicis, McCann again, DDB again, FCB again, we are, or Cannes is, and we shouldn't underestimate the influence of Cannes, not only to observe what's going on in the marketing realm, but to set the tone for what's going on in the marketing realm. What Cannes is saying to marketers, what it's saying to clients is, these guys, DDB, McCann, Publicis, are absolutely the best at coming up with PR ideas. Now, I don't want to get hyperbolic, but doesn't that terrify you just a little bit? Doesn't that suggest that we're going the way of the dinosaurs if we can't turn that around? And I'll turn first to Judy and Alina, both of whom made the jump from advertising to PR. Why didn't you just stay put and generate great PR ideas where you were?
No, it's a great question. Well, I think that, PR it's the future, right? When you look at what's happening with media and the collapse of traditional media, earned is becoming more and more important. And ad agencies are saying that. I was on the jury and someone said, we can't just do traditional advertising anymore. We have to be more. And so that's going to continue. So I'd like to parcel out two thoughts. So one is the PR jury. So at Edelman, we have cases. We won a Grand Prix yesterday. We're going to win gold today for another piece in other categories. So why are we winning in other categories and not the PR category? So I have no idea. It was surprising to me. And we've had work that won at other shows. And, Cannes it's a creativity festival. So do something new, do something surprising, unexpected. That's the first, what is the idea? And that's the most important thing. And then all the results and how it drove earned. And so it might be measured differently. I don't know, but I think that this trend is going to continue. Ad agencies have woken up. They don't see lanes. They drive, like when I was on agency side, we would come in and present PR ideas. Absolutely. Without a thought. And I find PR more polite. It's like, well, we're in a lane. I'm not sure we can show that. Client's going to get really upset. The ad agency doesn't care. We went in, we showed ideas, and they'd say that's somebody else's lane. Yeah, we know that, but good ideas really rule the world. So I think it's the mindset that needs to change.
Yeah, I want to build a little bit on that and say that traditionally, and this is where we are now, it feels that ad agencies are better at doing their own PR than PR agencies. We're really good at doing the PR for our clients and our brands, but not of ourselves. And the ad agencies are, because this has been traditionally, Cannes started as an advertising agency creativity award. They have built a reputation based on creativity because that brings them business. And, I think that we all have to learn a little bit from there and catch up to being as bold and as good as we are in doing PR for our clients and our brands to do PR for ourselves. Because the fact that you see a McCann, you see a Publicis, some of those ideas, and we know this, have had the input of a PR agency into some of those ideas. And who is submitting the award? Who is telling the story? Who is, going out there and saying, we're going to go for a Cannes, because they have a machine inside of the ad agency already working for that. And I think that we as a PR agency need to catch up on that and do a better PR for ourselves.
Paul, I love what you're saying, what you two are saying, and I Judy, your line about when you talked about sort of the lanes, right? I feel like our brothers and sisters in the ad world, traditional ad world, they don't see lanes, right?
No.
Not only do we see lanes, but we're actually often guilty of painting the lines.
Oh, yes.
Literally painting the lanes on the ground, like with ink that is born of insecurity, right? And maybe it's ink that's born of sort of our insecurity about ourselves, but also our ability to see the other channels that are at our disposal. And so it should be a wake-up call, Paul, right? I mean, some of this is about industry confidence. It's about our own sort of agency confidence, as you're saying, Alina, but it's also, I loved Gail's quote, Paul, when she talked about, I think it was the whole of the awards that she's seeing, but also the beautiful, the Spinneys, the gorgeous bread campaign. And she talked about it being such a simple and elegant idea. We get simple and elegant. Like that's in this industry's DNA. We get what that looks like, and we know how to create it. We know how to sell it in. What we don't always get is the marriage of that simple, elegant, beautiful, data-born idea with the swagger that it often takes to either sell it in, or you've done it and you've executed, to promote it and actually, discuss it at the level of a Cannes or others. And it's that, may we stop painting these lanes with our own insecurity.
I agree with this need for more swagger, Paul, and you and I have talked about that before. And I also agree that we often do stay in our narrow lanes and we should just blow that out of the water. But I guess, Mike, you mentioned the bread exam as a beautiful campaign. And I guess I would point out here that partnerships also are incredibly important. And so there you do have Weber with McCann, and there you do have, and you see this almost in every situation where you have a number of agencies coming together. And I'd argue that the client probably loves the fact that everybody is seamless, everybody is working together, and they on their side just really get a product that all comes together. Now, how we can break out of that and be the lead, is clearly important. We've talked here about the idea being central to that and coming up with more of those and having a process to do so. But I think we don't want to underestimate the fact that we are in there and we do have an opportunity to be part of these. That was my favorite campaign, the bread exam. I thought that was stunning. And I hope we have a chance to kind of talk about some of those campaigns and why we think that they're so effective.
I just want to bring in the idea of generations for a second, because, sorry, Paul, because a few years ago I judged the Young Cannes in collaboration with the PR Council, and it was for the PR Young Cannes, and so a lot of the ideas presented had no earned media, and it was a hot debate with the judges that this was the PR category with no earned, and was that still PR? And I thought it was really brave and bold, the ideas that the Young Cannes participants were bringing forward, because they, to me, it echoes back because they did not see any lane. They were presenting just freaking amazing ideas. And I wonder if there's something that we can learn from people up and coming in careers in the agencies that we're working with, in our own agencies, to say, have they actually got the boldest perspective, and that we need to translate that into more senior team members?
This is not an attack on earned by any stretch, but I've always felt that it was a huge mistake for our industry to define itself in terms of a channel or a sort of a kind of channel. Public relations there's nothing in the term public relations that suggests that earned media should be at the center, right? The term public relations suggests that what's at the center is the relationship. And what we're talking about here are campaigns, whether it's Like a Girl or Real Women or Fearless Girl or the Bread campaign or anything else that we've seen over the last decade in Cannes, that are about the core relationship between the brand and its stakeholders, the brand, mostly at Cannes, the brand and its consumers. And if you want to I mean, I like earned media. I have nothing against earned media, but if you want to jettison earned media entirely and build a relationship in other ways, I have no issue with that whatsoever. And I'm glad that there are young people coming up through the Young Cannes competition who are thinking about those issues as well. You touched, Sammy, earlier on data and analytics, and I'm wondering whether that's still an issue for our industry, whether it is perceived that the ad industry in particular, but other elements of the marketing realm have better data and therefore better insights and therefore better strategies and are therefore better positioned to lead. Do you think we're still behind in terms of data and analytics? Because I haven't had a conversation in the last 5 years where that wasn't at the forefront. If we're not catching up, I'd be very worried.
I think we have caught up, and I think that's why we're seeing the opportunity to participate in those strategic conversations at a much earlier stage than we did previously. What hasn't caught up is the perception of the industry as having caught up. So I think there's a chasm that we as an industry need to cross to educate and inform the market that PR is now truly data-driven. It has robust analytics capabilities and has, relevant perspective to share. That brands would do well to listen to. I think that's the challenge we face. In my opinion, and others may disagree with this, I think the data analytics is, has really caught up, particularly in the last couple of years, certainly for us as an agency, and I feel more broadly across the industry. But there's still a perception, and I talk to a lot of, CMOs of high growth technology companies in Silicon Valley. Their spend on PR is, from their perspective, often a little bit of a black hole, and they kind of conceptually understand the value of it, but I still feel we're relying on perceived value, demonstrable value, and that whole kind of dynamic, I think, urgently needs to change.
Yeah, I think that, I think that data intelligence is table stakes, right? Everyone needs to have it. It's really, so clients don't know we have it. Mostly, the ad agencies have taken that, and when you do have it, you need to package it in a way where what makes the way we look at data differently, because it's just a set of numbers. How is it interpreted? What are you doing with it? How do you use it to be more predictive? How do you use it to have people volunteer more data to you? How do you create programs that are that interesting? I think that's the key to how we frame up what we do with data.
I think there's an opportunity to also educate comms clients more in what a KPI can look like today, because you do have marketing and comms clients asking for brand lift sales and specific tangible KPIs more directly to the advertising agencies. and still at the end of the day asking for their traditional deliverables in terms of coverage. And, I think that there's an opportunity to educate clients that not necessarily the biggest impression outlet is what's going to drive the best results for you. And, we continuously find ourselves educating clients and saying, we're going to do this your way, but also our way, to start demonstrating this is actually going to generate more engagement than just being in a blanketed big, reach today show kind of outlet. So I feel that there's a lot of education that we can continue to do with the comms side of the client.
And I think to take it beyond engagement. Oh, sorry, Paul.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I think to just take it one step beyond engagement too, from the PR side, I think we spend a lot of time thinking more about the behavioral change or the action that we really want to drive from the data. So the idea is to take the big data, just cull it down immediately to small data and then move people forward. And so the more the PR industry can spend time thinking about the action that we want to come from whatever it is we're talking about, that also makes clients sit up and take notice. And so the agility we needed in COVID, where we had to get to the answer fast, you saw clients sit up really quickly if you just zeroed right in on that. And then we want, 70% of children to wash their hands or whatever the outcome might be.
I'm interested, Alina, in the topic of KPIs that you raised, largely because and I haven't studied this year's winners, so I can't say definitively that that's the case this year. But certainly historically, as I've gone through the winning campaigns at Cannes in the PR category, one of the things that I've found is that the split is pretty much 50-50 between campaigns that have absolutely no results, as far as I can tell. That are just, we had this brilliant creative idea and isn't it brilliant and creative, without any sense of what the tangible output or outcome was. Or they are measured, an industry have been training ourselves to avoid for the last decade or so. So, I still see AVE in Cannes award-winning entries, for example, and I certainly see reach and total impressions as a metric at Cannes, which is astonishing to me. Is there some sort of disconnect between where we're going in terms of metrics and what either Cannes wants or heaven forbid what clients want?
We're getting much more ask of business metrics. Our clients are getting savvier around asking, how did that influencer campaign turn into action, as it was mentioned, and turn into leads that then turned into clients? We had the privilege to work with Invisalign, a tech company, luxury, beauty product, if you will, is an intersection of beauty and technology. And we were able to track how the influencer campaign actually drove leads to actually drive conversion. And, I was very astonished to have a client say and attribute the growth and the increase in their earnings in Q3 of last year to the work that we did. So clients are getting savvier about it, and they're asking for more direct business results. I think that the opportunity relies when the clients are separated from marketing, and you have a specific set of comms clients that are asking for one specific KPIs, and marketing is asking for other KPIs. So when the clients are working together, we're getting much more direct ask of business driving results and attribution.
Isn't some of it also possible that it exists actually before before we even start collecting data or even approach an insight? And I think it lives in the brief. I think you could also argue, one could argue that ours is a discipline that historically has not, and I say this with respect to our brothers and sisters in advertising, we've often, I've done it. We've taken the call, we've taken the direction, we've been given the ask, but are we stopping to actually ask for the brief? Are we stopping to actually say, all right, but help us understand what is the actual objective here, and not start with the assumption that it's a communications objective. Start with questions and really drilling down into what the business imperative is, and pushing ourselves and our clients. I love what Alina said, that they might be asking for X, but we can give them X, but let's go back and actually say we want to deliver Y because we think that's really what you need. And therefore, the KPIs on the other side of that presumably could have a more direct correlation to a business result. So I think in the spirit, Paul, of you challenging all of us on the industry to step up, I challenge us and certainly my firm in being smarter at the very beginning and talk about that brief, ask for it, and challenge it to make sure that we're actually delivering on something that's not just about communications, but it's about the client's business.
I totally agree with that, Mike.
That's a really interesting point. And let me just say, I'll get to you in a second, Judy.
Sure.
So in our awards competition, we have a fairly simple format, which is fairly typical for the PR industry. And one of the things that we ask for is objectives. And by far the most common objective that we see, is to raise awareness. Now, to me, that's an utterly meaningless thing to ask anybody to do. Raising awareness in and of itself is pointless and absurd, and nobody should get money simply for doing that. Not only that, but when I look at the results on raising awareness, what I see typically is we got 50 million media impressions, which is not evidence that you raised awareness, it's evidence that you got media impressions. Leaving all that aside, when you get a brief like that, and you must see briefs like that, do you push back? Do you say, why are you asking me to do this utterly stupid thing for you, you moron client? This is why I would be an absolutely lousy PR person.
Sure, and then we are fired. We push back all the time. Of course, I think Mike said it really brilliantly. The fact is that if they're asking for the wrong thing, we won't do it well anyway. And I think clients ask us for that silently. I think silently they're saying, could you please, help us really move the business forward, or help the whatever action we really need or behavioral switch we need in the world. They really, really are saying quietly, could you uncover it? And could you show us how to move? And that's what our data shows them too. So of course we push back. I think it's a question of just how hard, and, at the end, are you willing to even resign an account or turn away an experience if you have to, because it won't really succeed.
Yeah, it comes back to what Mike was saying, which is question the question is something that we've been talking about at work, because it's not, that's the problem. But what is the root of the problem? Why don't you have awareness? Why aren't you relevant? Those are the questions. And the other thing that we've been doing is just having greater diversity at the table when we take in the brief. So, coming from a creative background, I hear different things from the client. I ask different questions. So really that client brief shapes and gives you information and uncovers much more deeply than, raise awareness. So I think diversity at the table is really important in that interaction with the client.
I'll go back even to challenging them in the beginning. And we talked about education of our client base earlier, and working with other communicators who work in-house and learning together. And often people will get very upset with me when I ask that, okay, you want to raise awareness for what purpose? Because that's what I need to do. What's the business goal? Well, I don't know. I'm not in marketing. I'm not in sales. And there's a defensiveness that can come up that really pisses people off, honestly, and makes them upset to talk to me. But it is that learning together. And, here's why I'm asking that question. Here's, I think, how you could position yourself really powerfully with your executive suite if you are connecting to the business goals. And so there is, we would never say what you said, Paul, to a prospect, but I see it as a chance to just uplift all of us, which is sort of big statement, but to really put us all in a position of having business influence and help them get there too, help the client get there too by asking the right questions.
Sorry, this occurs to me as I'm thinking about your answers to these questions and where the conversation has gone over the last few minutes. So I started out with one problem, which I still think is a problem, which is that the PR is winning at Cannes, but the PR business isn't. And I still think that's an issue. But we veered into interesting territory because the stuff we're talking about, data and analytics, insights, objectives, KPIs, that's very much not, and Judy, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been on a jury, I'm sure others have been on juries at Cannes as well, but you've been on juries at Cannes. That's very much not the language of Cannes. Right, data and analytics, KPIs, metrics. That's very much not what goes on in the jury room, right? And I wonder whether by chasing the bright, shiny object that is a Cannes lion, we risk actually not focusing on the real issue, which is this issue of data, analytics, insights, measurement, metrics, business results. Is Cannes becoming a distraction?
I don't think Cannes is a distraction. So I think it still comes down to great ideas, right? Because when we're judging a case, it is based on what is that human what is the problem you're solving, and it needs to be really clear and the more audacious, the better. What is the creative? What is the insight? And then how do we solve it in a really compelling, interesting, surprising way that will activate, motivate, and get press? And then the results are important. We always look at the results. Did it have impact in the world? What did it do in the world? I think that clients continue to want, clients look at Cannes and they want to be the best. They want to be doing breakthrough work. And I think discounting Cannes would be not good for the PR industry. I think that we have to get better. We have to get more creative. We have to compete, because as the traditional paid models are falling apart and no one watches TV anymore in the traditional way, PR is going to become more important. Earned is going to become more important, not just earned media, but earned. So I think, and people have choice now. They can watch anything they want on any device, anytime. So if we're not interesting, if we're not relevant, then we don't belong to be here.
I was going to say, to me, they're intrinsically tied. A great idea, brilliant idea is the one that moves results. They are intrinsically tied, and they should not be. It should be the way to get there, not a distraction. I agree with you.
But clearly, there are great campaigns that win PR awards competitions. I was rather inevitably looking at the Cannes winners and the Sabre winners this year and trying to figure out the difference. And one of the Sabre winning campaigns, Best in Show in Europe, was Ketchum's work for Velux, the Lifetime Carbon Neutral campaign, which was built around a pledge, which really started a movement and a conversation around this idea that you not only had to be carbon neutral going forward, but that you had to look back over the history of your organization, or in some cases the history of your country, and aim for lifetime carbon neutrality. Now, that to me was as important as any piece of work that I've seen over the last 12 months. I'm intrigued, first of all, whether you even entered that for Cannes, because it so doesn't fit the Cannes template. And secondly, whether you think a campaign like that could ever win at Cannes, given that there were almost no bells or whistles. There was nothing glamorous or sexy about it. It was just a really strong business commitment.
Paul, I've got to admit to you, I have to check with our team about what we submitted and what we didn't. So forgive me for this real-time admission. I need to confirm that, but I will answer your second. One of the most beautiful, I think, themes that I like you, and like I'm sure my fellow panelists, I haven't done as much homework and studied all of the winners and all of the entrants on this year's. But what I have seen, and I celebrate, is the fact that the campaigns are giving life and giving voice and giving a platform to conversations that are vital and yet have never been raised, right? I'm just as proud as the work that we've submitted and have been winning for with our clients at Libresse in Essity and the campaign called Womb Stories, right? This beautiful, completely integrated campaign with our fellow agency partners about raising awareness in the conversation about all manner related to female reproduction and the pain, both the pain of a miscarriage and the joy of an orgasm, right? These incredible conversations that are not being told or not being had. That provocation, right? And I use that word almost ironically. It shouldn't be a provocation. It should be part of the conversation. That is what is earning the attention, I think, of the juries and of our industry, right? Those who are watching this. But what I love about the point you're making in that campaign with Velux is let's push ourselves to make sure we're not just talking about those sorts of, you could argue provocative, but talking about actual environmental issues and issues related to sustainability and to the longevity of our planet, to diversity, to global LGBTQ issues, which I'm passionate about. So I'm not sure I'm answering a question with a lot of cogent thought, but one of the things that I love about what I'm seeing again is that it's purpose-driven work that's getting recognized. I think there are a lot of awards being given out for conversations that are more provocative than they have been in years past. But I like your point in that let's keep pushing the provocation and make it about things that are relative to the environment, to societal issues, to freedom, to inclusion, to those sorts of things. That's where we have to, I think, continue to push the discussion.
Just a quick show of hands almost, but of the rest of you, how many of you did great work last year that you didn't submit to Cannes because you thought this doesn't fit the template? This is a great campaign. We're incredibly proud. It moved the needle for the client. It did everything we wanted it to do, but it's not a Cannes campaign. Okay, I think Absolutely. I saw everybody's hand go up but Judy's, and I can't tell whether that's because Judy's hand is out of camera or whether she's an exception.
No, I think that we entered everything we thought was Cannes worthy. Like I said, it's a creative festival, so it comes down to what is creative and unique and special about it. So I think we entered everything we thought was worthy. Okay,
we've got about 5 minutes left, maybe. So really, one question: what's the future? Just a small question to end the discussion. What's the future of creativity in brand building, and how do we make sure that we're a part of it? Melissa.
Well, I would go back to something I said earlier, that I think creativity is only as good as the action that comes out the other side. And the more emotion, the more you can meet people where they're at, and people feel like that's something that's in my life. It's an issue. I had breast cancer, or I have a child who's sick, all the things that we struggle with in life. If creativity can be focused on how you get people to move to a certain action, I think it is the centerfold of everything that we do. And that's what it's all about, is really moving people to action.
I think that, creativity is playing a bigger and bigger role into how we're involved with our clients' business. And to me, creativity is what's going to continue to unlock innovation for clients. So I would expect in the future to see more innovation briefs for clients to ask us to solve business problems in different ways that are even outside of PR. That could be product solutions, that could be service solutions. We're already getting into that space. So I feel like creativity is going to be what's connecting us to the innovation arm of a client's business.
I love that. And I'll add on the second part of your question is, how do we be part of it? We are already part of it. That's what I'm taking away from all of this. We can continue to play a bigger part with the stop the politeness that we talked about earlier, move into different territory than we moved into before, like erase those lines of insecurity. Mike, I'm going to remember that for weeks. And now just bust it apart and just start doing new non-polite work that gets us head to head with the agencies, other ad agencies.
Sammy.
Yeah, I think would echo that, and to sort of end on a note of optimism. All of the big holding companies are reporting that their PR arms are outperforming their paid media, direct marketing, experiential divisions, and that's coming from the clients. Clients know that what we do really engenders trust with consumers. It is the best way to communicate authentically. And we're beginning to reap the benefits of that. And we need to break out of those lanes and shout a little louder about it. I think there's enormous cause for optimism and positivity here.
Mike?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Judy.
I'm really bullish about the future of PR, which is why I came over to this side, I would say. We have an opportunity because since I joined Edelman, just the aperture has been opened from being at a advertising agency, the access to this, CCO, the CEO crisis, what goes on. We have a greater view of a client's organization, what drives them, what their needs are, than I did on the advertising side. So the opportunity to be a business partner, a trusted business partner, is really the heart of and the future of the impact that we can have with clients and on their business, and bringing creativity into that, because the battleground, with the public and with, is content. It's creative content. And how do we unlock people to drive movements and create change in society? Like that's it. We have everything at our disposal. So I'm incredibly optimistic.
Okay, Mike, you get almost the last word. You're going to make it unanimous. Is everybody more optimistic than I am?
Yes, always, Paul, always. I'll give you credit too. And my thought on this, you said it earlier that the fundamental word that matters the most in our industry is relationships. And what I think is so interesting is that, you could argue that the very nature and the foundation and fundamentals of a relationship have changed over the past 18 months in ways we never could have predicted, but in ways that now our industry, our discipline, all of us are best equipped to understand and to act on. And there's never been, as we all figure the next chapter of our business and our lives out, there's never been more of a need for the tenets of what that relationship building can be, right? The empathy and authenticity and connection and understanding and all of that. That's what we do. Let's make sure we own that as an industry. Let's make sure we own that. But we don't just settle for the KPIs that we should settle for. It's about business results. And it's that connection that I think we've got to seize, and gets me fired up every day.
Okay, so it may surprise everybody out there to know that I fundamentally agree with everything that our 6 panelists just said. I think, as Sammy said, we have caught up with the other disciplines in terms of our use of data and analytics. Everything that Judy just said about the core advantages of public relations, its understanding of the entire stakeholder universe, its understanding of the relationship between trust and brand building, corporate reputation and brand building, all of these things put us in what I believe is a commanding intellectual position. The difference that I have with everybody here is, and this may be that, you know, I'm a blue sky dreamer rather than somebody who's working actually at the interface of business and our profession, is I think that means that 10 years ago, every smart client in the world should have cut their advertising budget by about 90% and given all of that money to us. And none of them did. And that's what I think everything you just said suggests is what clients should be doing. And it's not happening, and that's incredibly frustrating. We are not getting the intellectual opportunities or the financial opportunities as an industry that I think and you guys think we deserve. And at some point in the next few years, that has to change radically. Hope I'm still around to see it. Thank you very much, everybody, for a really lively, stimulating discussion. I'm sorry that you didn't get the benefit of the sunshine or the wonderful Cannes croissant, but the conversation was just as high quality as it normally is. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, everybody. And now we're going to run into a coffee break where we can all stop and absorb all that and decide what we make of it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.